President Obama and Republicans reach a compromise on extending the Bush tax cuts, and Senate Republicans filibuster to stop the DREAM Act. Today, political strategist Ralph Reed joins me live from Atlanta. I'm Julianne Thompson. Welcome to America Rising. This week, President Obama and congressional Republicans came to a compromise on extending the Bush tax cuts for all Americans. But it wasn't a unilateral compromise. Republicans also agreed to the president's demands for extending unemployment benefits. This compromise has put the president at odds with his party's base, and Senator Chuck Schumer called the agreement a capitulation to resurgent Republicans. Joining me today is political strategist and founder of the Faith and Freedom Coalition, Ralph Reed. Ralph, thank you for joining me.
Good to be with you, Julianne. Thanks.
Ralph, what is your take on this compromise?
Well, I think it really shows what a weak hand Barack Obama is really playing with right now. You know, keep in mind he's got at least through January 4th of next year, he has a majority in the House of Representatives of almost 260 Democrats. He has a majority in the Senate, and yet he's agreeing to an economic policy that he has lambasted from one end of this country for, really the better part of 4 years, saying that it was a recipe for disaster, saying that it didn't lead to job creation. And that policy, of course, is the Bush tax cuts, which were the largest and deepest tax cuts since the Reagan era. When they were originally passed, it was $1.4 trillion over approximately a decade, lowering the marginal tax rate on income, doubling the child tax credit from $500 to $1,000 per child, which is important for middle-class working families, ameliorating the marriage penalty, which punished people for being married under the tax code, and of course, later the Bush tax cuts lowered the capital gains tax rate to 15%, and ultimately the death tax went, as you know, Julianne, from about 55% down to zero. So this is I hate to say it because I don't know that I've ever found myself in agreement with Chuck Schumer, but I think the quote is exactly right. This is a total capitulation. Now look, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't think it makes a lot of sense to extend unemployment benefits for people who have already been unemployed for over a year for another 13 months. The empirical evidence is very clear. What people need, Julianne, is they need a temporary, assistance while they're looking for a job. But if unemployment goes from being a temporary assistance program to either a permanent or semi-permanent federal welfare program, all it does is cause people to become increasingly dependent upon government. And what we find historically is that people get out there in the workforce and start getting jobs when the assistance is no longer available. That's an empirical fact. I'm not, rendering any kind of judgment or being critical of anybody who's lost their job in this terrible economy. It's a brutal economy, but this president's policies have made it worse, not better, and it doesn't help to make, unemployment benefits go on for an even longer period of time, in my view.
Oh, isn't it actually the states that are going to bear the bulk of the burden when it comes to an extension of unemployment benefits?
Well, it is, but of course this compromise, as you know, provides about $130 billion in grants to the states to do so. It's unclear exactly how that's going to work, but I think what we have here, Julianne, is a typical example of a failed policy based on well-intentioned but misplaced compassion. It's very similar to what we had in the 60s and 70s and 80s when we were paying people to do three things simultaneously. Number one, not work. Number two, don't get married. And number three, bear children, preferably repeatedly, out of wedlock. That was the old AFDC, Families with Dependent Children program that really was federal policy for 30 or 40 years. We argued that all it did was make people dependent, and we repealed the traditional welfare program. They said at the time, in the mid-90s, that 2 million people would be thrown into the streets. And what happened? Those people went out and found jobs. People will find jobs when they have to find jobs, and as long as they're being paid not to work, then don't be surprised when they don't work.
Well, also this week, the House passed the DREAM Act, but Senate Republicans are threatening a filibuster to stall the DREAM Act, and we understand that they don't have the votes right now, but we also understand that next week the Senate Democrats plan to present the House version of the bill. What do you think about that? I mean, the act applies to children of illegal immigrants who arrive in the U.S. before they turn 16. They must be under 30 when they apply and have been in college or the military for at least 2 years and not have a serious criminal record. And that's going to automatically qualify them for a green card or a student visa despite their illegal status. Don't you believe that passing the DREAM Act will just reward illegal status? And what do you think it's going to do to our economy?
Well, unfortunately I do, Julianne, and I speak as the grandson of immigrants. My grandfather came here to the United States from Ireland. America, unique among all nations in the history of the human race, is a nation of immigrants. That's what makes America great, is people come here because they want to be free and because they want to live in a country where they're judged not based on the color of their skin or the country from which they came, but based on their talents and abilities. And this is a great nation because of that. So we celebrate that ethic.
Absolutely.
But I will tell you that if you want to be an American, you don't want your first act on the path to becoming an American citizen to be violating the law. And this law, again, misplaced compassion. Liberals sometimes have good intentions, but the problem is, Julianne, is that when you reward law-breaking, first of all, you're unintentionally punishing the people who have played by the rules and followed the law. There are a lot of people all over the world who have children who want to come here, and they have gotten in line, and they have applied for their visas, and they have played by the rules. What does this say to them? When some people have waited 5 years, 10 years, for their children to be able to join them here. So I don't like it for that reason. I'll tell you another reason why I don't like it, Julianne. I don't like it because a little more than a month ago, the American people, in the biggest turnout in a midterm election in American history, 90 million voters, sent as thunderous and full-throated a repudiation of this administration and this Congress's stewardship of the economy as it is possible to send. 63 new Republicans in the House, 6 new senators, 5 net new governors, 680 net new state legislators. This is the worst defeat for the Democrats in a midterm since 1938. The American people want this administration and this Congress focused on jobs and economic growth. And what are they focused on? Gays in the military, legalizing online poker, and immigration. Now, look, these are important issues, but they're not as important as getting people jobs. So I'm beginning to wonder if Harry Reid, Nancy Pelosi, and Barack Obama learned anything from the results of the 2010 election.
Well, I think you're right, Ralph. I'm not sure that they learned very much as a result of this past election and the overwhelming victory of Republicans, because it seems like they're doing all they can to do as much damage in America as possible before Republicans take control in January. Ralph, thank you for joining me today. I really hope you'll come back and talk with us soon. I know there's going to be a lot going on next year, and we really would enjoy your input. So thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you, Julianne, and let me just commend you and the entire Tea Party team and all your great activists all over America for the great job you're doing. Without you and your organization and those activists, what happened on November 2nd would have never happened. You guys deserve a lot of credit, and I'm honored to work with you.
Thank you very much, Ralph. And remember, you are the heart and soul of the Tea Party movement. I'm Julianne Thompson. Thank you for joining us.